Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's topic 6 of Unit 2, Peculiar Instances of Nationalism in Sport. So peculiar in this case is it's unique. It's interesting. It's distinctive. It doesn't mean it's odd or weird, though you might find some of the examples fall into that category for your personal estimation. But they are different, and they're different in a couple of ways. So first, they're different because they might mark a moment when a society is ready to embrace a new part of their populace. They've kind of excluded from the national dialogue to that point. It might be distinctive or unique because it comes from a sporting event or sports space that you wouldn't expect. It might come because you begin to cheer for someone or some country that is actually not a friend of yours. But because they're in a game or an event that is of interest to you, you suddenly are nationalistically cheering for someone you might not otherwise do. I'm wearing my Honduras jersey today because one of the really cool examples of this comes from Honduras in 2009 and is one of my very favorites. I re-listened to the radio calls this morning and watched several videos, and so I get teary-eyed and emotional, just so happy for my Honduran friends. And I hope you see that that's a different kind of thing we've been talking about, because you're not talking about logic here, you're talking about emotion and joy. So there may or may not be stuff that follows on from it into sports space, but there might be. Because these come from countries large and small. They come from sports or sporting events large and small. They're moments that define and give you an ability to do something different. But really what you need for it to play out in ways where a society is ready to welcome other people into their group. So you can have these sporting events when the society's not ready. So we're going to start here with Jim Thorpe, who's this athlete on the right who maybe he was the greatest athlete of the 20th century. He was a member of the Sauk and Fox tribes. He played almost any sport you can imagine that was part of the U.S. sports base. And he won all the big events in the Stockholm Olympics in the early part of the 20th century. He was very well respected individually, and he and some of his fellows who went to something called the Carlisle Indian School were well respected as athletes, but it doesn't mean that people come to look at the indigenous differently in the United States, particularly because the Carlisle Indian School itself is one of these boarding schools where the Western-based traditions are sort of shoved onto the native students. You're trying to basically drown out the Indian in the Indian. You can learn a lot more about this in the American Indian Studies program here on campus about how this played out. But he doesn't come to be seen as, he comes to be seen as an Indian, but not as representing of a case where we should look to all Indians differently or respect them and their culture differently. Some really cool moments. He's at the end of the Olympics. The King of Sweden, Gustav V, who was there at the Stockholm Games, says, "You, sir, are the greatest athlete in the world, and it'd be an honor to shake your hand." So the idea that a king in old Europe wants to shake the hand of an indigenous man is a really cool moment, but we were not at a place in the United States to have that transition to a different kind of inclusion for Indians. Same thing with Billy Mills. He's here in the middle. You're going to watch a clip of that. I watch that clip all the time, man, several times a year. I urge you to watch these bonus bits this time on Peculiar Instances of Nationalism. Watch Mills winning his race in 1968. It's a big moment and really fun. But again, we're not ready. We're not ready to embrace the indigenous in quite the same way. In fact, it's a very tense time in federal government Indian relations. By contrast, in 2000, when Sydney, Australia hosted their Olympics, they were ready. They were at a point in national dialogue where they're ready to really look at their indigenous, the Aboriginal peoples, differently. Kathy Freeman was an athlete. She carried the flag in the opening ceremonies. She wins the 200-meter sprint. It's a big moment, and she carries both the Australian and the Aboriginal flag with her on her victory lap. It matters, and they begin a dialogue about inclusivity and access and rights for their indigenous in ways in which we weren't ready to do previously when indigenous athletes did something great. It's a moment that's peculiar and distinctive because of the carrying of the Aboriginal flag, and it matters. So in our country, we have a couple of times, in the North America, a couple of times when the native cultures are looked at and respected. And they were the opening ceremonies of the 2002 Salt Lake and 2010 Vancouver Winter Olympics when First Nations peoples were part of the opening ceremonies and respected. So you got to be at a place where you're ready for it. So here's two examples of where you might or might not be ready for it. The one on the right is a very famous moment from Olympic history, the Mexico City Olympics, when Tommie Smith and John Carlos, who had won medals in one of the sprints, decide to make the Black Power salute on the medal stand. Some people are really excited by this and really energized, but a lot of people are offended. U.S. Olympic officials send them home. It is a controversial moment that the country, even though we're in the midst of the civil rights movement and we're talking about things, it's really a moment that is more respected in hindsight than it was in the moment, for sure. Certainly for white America. They weren't ready for it. So it's a defining moment, and it is nationalistic, but it's nationalistic for a group of people looking for access in society rather than the rest of the society saying, yes, you belong here. So it takes a couple of decades for this to really resonate. On the left is Nawal El-Moukwatel, who was a Moroccan hurdler. She's the first Moroccan to win gold. She's the first Arab woman to win gold, and she won it in 1984 in Los Angeles. She had been kind of a controversial figure before the Olympics in her home country because she trained in athletic garb, not in hijab or in traditional clothing or respectable clothing for women in the Arab world. She's very much celebrated when she wins the gold. It's a big moment. But while she becomes an important figure globally, she does not become sort of a symbol of additional inclusivity and access for women in her home country. Celebrated in the moment, but not so much longer term. She's a very important activist still today for access and things. So these can be very complicated if they happen at the right moment in society, like Kathy Freeman. It galvanizes that inclusion movement, but it might also create some controversy or even just people who aren't interested after the fact. Generating a legacy can come from these moments, though, as well. So this is I've talked about Abebe Bikila before. I'll talk about him again. And still, some people on the final exam will tell me he was famous and he's relevant because he ran barefoot in Rome. He did run barefoot in Rome. He won the final big event of the Olympics, running past even some of the fascist statuary that had been put up during the Mussolini era. Mussolini had conquered Ethiopia. He shows what Ethiopia can do, and he launches a legacy of marathon running, distance running in Ethiopia that persists to this day. It opens a space, this moment that galvanizes people in his country, and it galvanizes the world to look and see, what happened here. This is a quote, you can read it from the British Olympic officials writing back to say what had happened that day. It's a big moment. It creates a legacy that does persist. But that's one where it's part of the dominant national group in Ethiopia, and then they take off and run with it, literally and figuratively. Similarly, in middle distance, Kenyan running coming out of the 1960s also matters. So that galvanizing figure is Kip Keino. He's not the first winner of a gold medal for Kenya, but he does it in such dominating fashion. So this picture here on the bottom is of the 1,500 meters race in Mexico City, and the athlete behind his name is Jim Ryan. He was an American distance runner. He was very well known in athletic circles. And so he's one of the darlings of the game. Jim Ryan expected to win. And here's this race where Kip Keino doesn't just win, he blows him away. And this moment galvanizes this tradition. Doesn't mean nobody ran in Kenya before, but after there's this tradition that comes. So there's this euphemistic question and answer you could do about how many Kenyans might win a medal in a middle distance race. And so the answer is how many Kenyans are in the race. So if there's three, if you're allowed to place three athletes in a race per country, then probably you have three Kenyans in the top three. And if there's five, then five, and 10, probably eight, and so on. So it's men's and women's now. It's the middle distance races. It's things like the steeplechase, which is pictured here twice, where you run and then you go over some little walls and into water. There's also Kenyans running for countries all over the world, either through that recruitment process. I mean, back in Unit 1, we talked about questions of nationality and citizenship. Kenyans run everywhere. We've got a tie to a Kenyan who naturalized as American here on the Palouse Bernard Lagat came to WSU in the 1990s as a middle distance runner. He likes it on the Blues, or he likes it in the United States, and naturalizes an American, and wins several medals as a Kenyan runner. But he's American citizen, and part of that sort of Kenyan diaspora in that this field, this tradition. One of the articles I'm going to ask you to read is an older profile from Sports Illustrated called "Sons of the Wind" that looks at the development of Kenyan middle distance running. Then you've got sprinting in the Caribbean, especially in Jamaica. And the reason this one's a little bit different is it's much easier to package sprints and for people to follow sprints than it is to follow marathons or middle distance running. So when you have the emergence of the Jamaicans, who began to win medals in 1948, they go way back and are winning many of the races from 2006 on, men's and women. So Kellyanne Fraser-Price and several others become very important. But I picked this image first to show that in that short race that Usain Bolt was blowing away the field, but then he also has this moment of, I don't know, it's elan, it's a little bit of celebratory cockiness, it's style and pep and verve. And so that idea that Jamaica has this and can adopt this attitude, at least in sprinting, towards the rest of the world and say, look what we can do. It matters, and their tradition carries on in men's and women's sprinting to today. Very exciting and interesting stuff. Some other islands also in the Caribbean have a bit of this tradition as well. So you've got some others that are further off the beaten path that are pretty fun. I'm going to ask you to watch a clip about distance snow cross-country relay races. So there were 3 in the 90s that were competed between Norway, which is winter sports mad, and Italy. Italy's an interesting country. We think of Italy as wine and grapes and that beautiful southern climate, but Italy's also in Alps. They've got a lot of their country that's in the Alps, and so they have a winter sports tradition as well. They did 3 consecutive 4x10K races in Olympics and World Championships where the margin of victory, if you add them up, was 0.9 seconds. That's 120K total racing with a difference of 0.9 seconds. And Italy won this race in 1992. It's a big moment. This one to the side here, short track speed skating is kind of a wild sport. It really matters in South Korea. The government put a lot of money into it in the early 90s. They've developed a tradition where lots of youths and people, there's speed skating clubs all over the Seoul, and it's beloved. And in 2002, there's this moment in a gold medal race where American skier Apollo Anton Ono indicates that he's been interfered with by Kim Dong-sung of the South Korean team. So Kim Dong-un, he wins the race, but he's then disqualified. The Americans get it. I'm going to ask you to watch a clip of the South Koreans scoring a goal against the United States in the 2002 World Cup. Watch the goal celebration. You'll recognize it. Now, this could not happen in any other place except South Korea. And even though I'm a huge fan of the U.S. national soccer team, I exulted in the moment when I saw that celebration. Not when the goal was scored, when the celebration was made. Roland Gardner had kind of a blip as a flash in the pan of a nationalistic moment as a Greco-Roman wrestler in 2000, beating a Russian athlete who hadn't lost in a couple of decades. And then this one is where you're going to see several clips where countries in the Americas to which we have not been overly kind to, either that in relation that would be Honduras or Mexico, come to celebrate us wildly because we score important goals in the last day of qualification processes that let their countries either go to the World Cup or go to a playoff that lets them go to the World Cup. So you have this Jonathan Bornstein where after he scores this goal that's represented here on the left, you'll watch some clips, the president invites him down on their dime. They are celebrating him. He matters. He could go anywhere and do anything in Honduras still. And then 4 years later, Graham Zusi, who's shown here consoling a Panamanian player who was about with his team to make it to the World Cup. Instead, Zusi scores a goal. San Zusi is not what he's called in Panama, so he's called in Mexico because the result in one game gives the ability to the other team to progress. There's clips for both of these. They are definitely peculiar. They're peculiar. They're awesome. Legacies of national pride can come when you least expect it. They can be built upon, they can be momentary, but we shouldn't discount them because they're not part of a formal sports pace or formal conscious use.